Today, Declan, our first lecture, was proclaiming from the book of Amos. And we don't hear from the book of Amos very often at all. Maybe just once or twice in the whole 3-year cycle of readings we have. But it's good for us to hear Declan. It's good for us to hear Amos because, well, Amos has something important to say. He's talking about, say, how the poor are treated. And say how the rich, let's say, lord it over the poor. How it's as if, let's say, the poor is sold for the price of a pair of sandals, and on and on. Think about that. Think about that psalm we heard today. You know, let's say how the Lord hears the poor. And there's a hymn we often hear too. The Lord hears the cry of the poor. It's something that kind of rattles around in our souls. We remember how Jesus reached out to the poor, and how we, as sisters and brothers of Jesus, are called to serve the poor and be with the poor in so many ways. That's a good thing for us to hold on to. That's part of our Christian calling. At the same time, in our gospel today, hey, we've got the opposite, it seems. We've got, let's say, stories of the rich and I won't say rich and famous, I'll say the rich and the infamous. Because we have the story of the steward who, how should I say this? He works for a master who is so rich, he's gone some time without noticing that the steward has messed up his finances. And so he's calling the steward in, and he says to him, come forward, give me an account of your work, for you're about to lose your job. When I worked for General Electric in the 80s in Schenectady, the phrase was, oh, they're going to have him hit the bricks. They're going to throw him right out the main gate. The steward is going to lose his job, and he's terrified. What's going to happen to him? He's had it very, very well. He's too ashamed to beg. He's not strong enough to dig. So he decides to make friends with the master's debtors. And he's cutting deals. You owe the master 100? Write it for 80 and pay it right now. You owe the master 80? Write one for 50 and pay it right now. And the master takes note of this. Just, I have my questions about you, but you're pretty enterprising. You can stay on the job till the next time. So we have a situation like that going on. Now, we have in the scriptures this story really about, say, as Jesus talks about, let's say that money is the root of evil. And I'm going to say that we can do good things with money. Christians can say, if they use money as a tool, if they act as stewards, following the example of Jesus, there are wonderful things we can do for our families, for our neighbors, for the world. But maybe, let's say, the steward has had his head turned. Maybe he's had too much of a taste of the good life and he's gotten greedy. Or let me give you a little bit of a 21st century connection too. Maybe it's not necessarily that he's greedy. Maybe he's just gotten into other things. Could all that wealth have turned his head? Sure, but hey, how many times has the internet turned our heads? How many times has maybe like following wall-to-wall sports or wall-to-wall politics turned our heads? How many times when, let's say, the opportunity for being powerful or influential has turned our heads? How many times has the experience, say, of addicting things, whether it's alcohol or tobacco or sexuality, all those things maybe are in the front of our mind rather than having the Lord in the front of our mind. What's that old phrase I think we all heard as children? Moderation in all things. The Lord gives many good gifts in the world. The Lord provides many riches for us to use. They are good gifts if we use them wisely, if we act as stewards of these good gifts that God has given us. What shall we do with the good blessings, the good gifts, the good talents that God has given us? The steward has some important choices to make. Can he kind of turn his life around and be a good steward? We have that calling for us too. How should we respond to the opportunity, whether, say, looking at the steward and learning from his greed, or considering, say, ourselves or our friends and our contemporaries, maybe who just get caught up and distracted by so many things that kind of take our mind off of our families, our neighbors, our friends, the poor, the Lord, all these good things that we can do, all on behalf of Jesus. For here we are, as Jesus is telling them, we cannot serve two masters. Can, instead of worrying about the goods that we're trying to accumulate, or being caught up and distracted by, say, the bright, shiny things in the world, can we think a little bit that say, our hearts are not set on these things, instead of chasing these things, or letting these things, maybe in the worst case scenario, letting these gifts and these riches possess us. Instead, let's think about how you and I can live our lives so that the Lord will possess our hearts. The Lord will be in our hearts, and we in turn can turn to the Lord and look to say, Lord, we are here. We are your servants. What can we do to be your people today?